Hi everyone, this is Sharon. Today I have a flip through of this old world style journal for you. On the outside I created a little bit of a lacy wrap. I took this crochet doily and I just strung this velvet ribbon through there the first time around, and then I wrapped it again a second time, and then I just hold it all together with this vintage buckle on the front. And to pull that off, I'll just show you the whole thing first so you can kind of see what that looks like. And then I'm just going to loosen the buckle. It's not attached at all. And then slide that off. Now the cover of this journal is an 1872 German book. And I absolutely love this embossed cover on here. I had to expand the spine, so I did add this tapestry fabric to add an extra inch or so onto the spine. I really love the way that looks with the book cover. And then the back is similar to the front. This has 7 signatures. I'll put the number of pages and dimensions down below because this will not be in my Etsy shop. It is spoken for. And then on the front, I've just got this initial in the little keyhole there. This journal is in the style of a lot of the prayer journals that I create. The recipient of this journal very much has an appreciation for Renaissance and medieval religious art, and so I've included a lot of those type of images in here, along with a lot of vintage and antique book pages, laces, and fabrics. For the inside cover, I use this page from a 1700s French tome. Then I just added a little label there, and then the back cover, another page from that book, and another label on there. So on this first page, I just embellished it a little bit with some old fragile lace and a wax seal on top. And then here on this page, I just created a couple of bands with this beautiful plum velvet ribbon. And I absolutely love the way that looks with this teal background. I think the combination is really very rich looking. And then in there, I've got this old postcard and this page from an old, I think it looks like some type of a German book. Here for the page, I use this beautiful piece of cut lace. I'm not sure what it was at one time. It looked like some type of a runner. And then here I've just got clipped to the page this little trifold piece. I did some stenciling on the inside, added a stamp, and then this is the image on the back. Here in the center of the signature, I've got a couple of these little kind of medieval looking crosses that I punched out. Just hung those from the strings. The page is this old book page of these urns. I love that. And then for my pockets, I used the flap of an envelope and just exposed the inside of that and did some stenciling on there and stitched it down to the page. And then in those little pockets, I've got these 2 journaling cards. These are images of Notre Dame in Paris. And what I did was, the background is this image of an old document, and I just folded that in half, stitched down this piece, so that creates a little tuck in there. But then that stitching also creates another little tuck on the inside, and I lined the back with this old book page. And then in there, I just tucked this really old piece of 1800s wallpaper. It's kind of, it feels like it's on like an old craft paper, but it's got some hand painting on it, which I just love. And then this one is similar. Again, I stitched that down. And then on the inside pocket, I've got another piece of that beautiful wallpaper. Here I just left the back plain for some writing room, and then I've got another side of that beautiful cutwork lace. Here I've got a botanical image. I like to incorporate those into just about every single journal. And I just added a little piece of fabric to the top of that page. Here I just got a little cluster of lace and velvet and some ticking on that page. And then over here I've got an old, I think it was like a page from a newspaper, and I just folded that back to create a pocket and line that with a digital image along there and some washi tape. And then in there I tucked this little piece. I kind of made this little folio. The cover is a book page image from an old art book. And then on the inside, I just added some medieval style printing and this doily in the middle. And then here's a cross-stitch bookmark that was in this book that I used. And I just thought I should leave it with the journal. So I tucked that in there as well. Here I created a pocket and just embellished again with some velvet and some fabric, and I just did a little bit of slow stitching to connect those two. And then there's lots of handwriting on this old page. And then in there I've got this tag that I made, some embossed paper on the back, and then this one. And then I put this die cut on the back. I thought that was really pretty. Here on this page, I just took this die cut medallion piece and cut it in half and used that for a little tuck on the top. And then in there, I've got this tag that I made. Here I've got an old French book page, and then I created a lace belly band on this side and put this tag in there. And then if I flip over to this side, I've got another tag from that same image and just some sari silk on the top for the ties. And then in the center, I've got this image. It's kind of a sort of a medieval style painting of the Last Supper, and I just added a little piece of cut paper on the bottom. Here I've got a flip out on this page. I did some punching along there, and then in there I've got this piece where I just tied together some papers, some treated napkin, some other pretty images, and a book page. Here I've got another little tuck with that medallion, and in there I've got this old Paris postcard of Notre Dame. This is what the page looks like. Here I embellished with a little bit of old lace on the top, and embellished this pocket again with fabric, velvet ribbon, and a button. And then in there I've got this card that I made, so I just kind of ruched up this sari silk ribbon on the side, and then on the back I created this little half circle pocket, and then in there I've got this little piece that I tucked in. And then in this side tuck I've got another couple of pieces. This is some onion skin correspondence from 1900. And then I also made this card. Here on this page, I embellished that beautiful image with this piece of lace. And then on this side of the page, I attached this beautiful old French prayer card, and it's got this beautiful cut lace edge on there. I don't want to take it off because it's a little fragile, so you have to be careful with the clip when you take it on and off. And then on this side of the page, I've got this page from a butterfly book, and I just added a little tab on there. Here I've got some old sheet music for my page, and then I created this tag. In the center of the signature, I brought the sides in for these side tucks and punched the edge. And then I've got a couple of journaling cards that I inserted. Got some pretty washi tape down the center. And then I love these birds. They're from Twisted Paper Studio, and they're my favorite birds. So this one, I just basically stitched it down to an old book page. And these are waxed paper. And then I took some cotton fabric and just did some decorative stitching on there too, and added that to the side. And then there's this one. Here on this page, I just clipped on this full calling card that I made and just added a piece of ribbon to the back side. Did a little stenciling on that page. And then here, one of my favorite chandelier images. And on this page, I just embellished again with some fabric and lace. Here is another bookmark that I found in this particular book that I'm using for my cover. And it's just a beautiful piece of silk that's embroidered, and I thought I should keep that also, again, with the journal. So here, this page is some treated napkin. And here I've just got a tab that I created. It's actually a pocket on this side that I wrapped around, and it's layered up with some waxed straw paper, and then a couple of other images, and this image, and then this is a piece of Florentine paper. And then in that pocket, I've got this photo, which came in a little souvenir pack from the Uffizi gallery in Florence. And then I've got this card that I made. This is a beautiful old piece of ledger paper from 1827. And then on the inside, I clipped on this little piece that I made, my favorite nun. And I just layered her on this envelope with some beautiful paper and lace. And then on the inside, I created this pocket with this embossed paper, and I just put a couple of little journaling cards in there. Here I created a pocket with some linen fabric. I doubled it up so it actually is a double pocket. There's one in the front and one in the back. And then I just took one of my stamps and stamped it and added some decorative stitching on each side. And then in there I've got this journaling card that I made. This beautiful image is from Tailor Made Journals. It's a newer kit called Worn Tapestry. It's got, if you like peeling paint and roses, there's many beautiful images in that kit. And what I did was, this was all one image, so I folded it over, and then I sandwiched in between there this lace and stitched that down. And then I just added a little label to the back side. So I'm tucking that in the back pocket. And then in the front pocket, I created this little envelope, and I put a wax seal on there. And I know if I was receiving this envelope and it was not broken open, I would be afraid to open it because I didn't want to wreck it. So I already did that for the recipient. So she's able to open it and see what's inside the envelope. And I'm just going to slip that in this front pocket. Here, another beautiful religious image, and I just added a little bit of lace on there. Here I created this top tuck with this handkerchief corner, beautifully embroidered. And then this is what the image looks like underneath. And then in there I tucked this old French letter from, looks like maybe 1871. It's quite fragile. Yes, 1871. Over on this side of the page, I clipped on with this clip. I've just got some beads and a medal on there. I've got this little bundle that I made. So I took this beautiful piece of old lace and I just added a hat pin to that. And that kind of holds in all of these little bookmarks or journaling cards. So I've got that one. And I just added some old book page on the back for writing. And then there's this piece of kind of parchment type paper and some beautiful images from tailor-made journals. Did a little stenciling on the back of that one. This nice vellum piece. And then another Lorna image. Here on this page, I added this piece of wallpaper and I left it open on the top, so it's actually a large pocket. You could stick something in there. I don't have anything in there. And then I just added a little bit of ribbon to the top of that page. And then on this side of the page, this is one of those, you might have seen me use these before, from an electrical manual. It's got some beautiful blue, indigo blue printing and images. And what I did was, I don't know if you can see all this, but I just created a pocket that flops down. And I added these beautiful kind of tapestry fabric pieces to there and some full buttons. And then that can flap down, and then you can see this beautiful image of the Last Supper. And then there's room for some kind of secret journaling on the backs of these. And I just love the little illustrations on there. Here on this side of the page, I created a corner tuck with this beautiful piece of lace. And then in there, I just tucked this piece. It's got this pretty image on the front. And then this kind of doily image on the back. Here I created a large tuck on the page. And then in there, I've got this little booklet that I made. This beautiful image on the front. And then here, I just folded it over and stitched that down and then just added a little piece of this crinkly paper there. So that actually creates another little tuck there. And I've just got some old book pages and some other images in here. Some writing room in the center. And then this another beautiful kind of brown and cream image on the inside covers. Here I've got this top tuck on that page, and then I've got this page from an old French embroidery book. Some beautiful images on there, and I just stitched on this beautiful lacy piece on the front. Here on this page, I added this piece of sari trim to the top. Thought the colors really worked nicely with what's on the page. And then here I've got a page from an 1880 magazine. I think it's called La Mode. Just some beautiful illustrations on there. And then in the center, if I can get it open, I've got this beautiful image, kind of a medieval looking piece. I just added a teeny little bit of sparkle to the tops. And then on the strings, I've added some crystal and glass beads. And then on the back sides, I created these velvet belly bands and just added a little paper buckle on there. And then in there, I've got this tag that I made. And then on this side, there's another one. Here I created a little kind of a side tuck belly band sort of a thing with this beautiful trim piece. And then in there, I've got a little bundle of book pages, old book pages, some images, medieval style religious images. I should probably take that off and show you the back of the page. It's got this framed image on there. Manuscript image. Here on this page, I added this, I don't know, it's like a tab. It's pretty old, I think. It's an old, like probably from furniture or tapestry or something. And then I just added a full button on there. And then this is a page from an architectural book that I have. I just did a little bit of embossing on there. Then here on this side, I brought the page up for a pocket, just added this grosgrain ribbon on there. And then in there, I tucked one of the pages from the book that had the owner's signature on there. I thought that was neat. And then I created this tag, some embossed paper on the back. Just did a little bit of inking on there to bring out the pattern. Added this pretty paper doily, Edith Holden book page. And then in the center, I created some top tucks with that page. That's what it looks like. There's a bird on there. I did a little bit of stamping. And then I created this 4-panel piece. So here on the front, I got these 4 panels. So this one, and this one came from the same image. And then I just inserted the butterflies because I wanted 4 panels instead of 3. And then on the back side, I lined these with some fabric. So I've got some ticking on these 2, and then some pretty fabrics from Roxy Creations on the other 2. And then I just added some lace pockets to the bottom. So those are actually open on the top. All of them you can use to tuck things in. Here I've got some tickets in that one. And then I just added a few little pieces that I hand stitched on here, and then a little bit of lace there and there, and then this little patch on that one. So just fold those over and then tuck them in. And these are all held together with some seam binding ribbon. And then in this pocket, I've got the title page of this book. And then this tag that I made. Here again, another side to that architectural book page. And then on this side of the page, I've created a fabric flip with this piece from a 1920s religious vestment. I just added a little bit of lace to the bottom of that. That flips up. And that brings us to our last page, where I did a little kind of a cluster at the top with a wax seal. And then I've got this beautiful wool fabric that I used for the inside of my spine. And that is our flip through for today. I thank you very much for joining me. Until next time, bye-bye.